It didn't happen overnight. No missiles, no invasions, no breaking news. Yet somehow, the world's power map began to tilt. From trade routes to technology, from energy to influence, the shift is silent but unstoppable. While the West looks inward, China moves outward. And piece by piece, it's reshaping the global order not with war, but with strategy. Today, we break down China's silent takeover, the global power shift no one can stop. This video is for educational and analytical purposes only. It does not promote conflict or political agendas. If you want to understand global events beyond the headlines, subscribe and join us for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. Section 1. The strategy behind the silence. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, launched in 2013, represents a strategic endeavor to reshape global infrastructure and economic landscapes. With over 150 countries participating, the BRI spans continents, encompassing projects such as railways, ports, and digital infrastructure. World Economic Forum. At its core, the BRI is not merely about constructing physical structures but about fostering interdependence. By providing financing and expertise, China enables nations to develop critical infrastructure, thereby integrating them into a network of economic and political influence. This approach contrasts with traditional imperialistic strategies, focusing instead on mutual development and shared growth. A notable example of this strategy is the Jakarta-Bandung High-Speed Rail (KCJB) project in Indonesia. Initially projected at $6.02 billion, the project's costs escalated to $7.22 billion due to unforeseen challenges, including land acquisition issues and the COVID-19 pandemic. Financed predominantly through loans from the China Development Bank, the project has faced financial strain, with low ridership failing to meet expectations. As a result, Indonesia is now negotiating debt restructuring with China to manage the financial burden. This scenario exemplifies the dual nature of China's strategy. While offering development opportunities, it also creates financial dependencies. Countries involved in the BRI often find themselves balancing the benefits of infrastructure development with the challenges of managing substantial debt obligations. Furthermore, China's approach extends beyond physical infrastructure to encompass digital connectivity. Through the Digital Silk Road, China is investing in telecommunications, 5G networks, and data centers across various nations. This digital expansion enhances China's influence over global communication networks and positions it as a central player in the digital economy. In essence, China's strategy behind the BRI is characterized by a blend of development assistance and strategic influence. By fostering economic interdependence, China aims to create a network of nations aligned with its vision of global governance, all while maintaining a facade of mutual partnership and development. Section 2. Economic control becomes global power. Trade is no longer just about buying and selling, it's leverage, influence, and power. China knows this better than anyone. Today, it produces nearly 1/3 of all goods on Earth, from rare earth minerals and smartphones to pharmaceuticals and solar panels. This isn't just manufacturing dominance, it's a tool for shaping the world. Every shipment leaving a Chinese port carries more than goods. It carries influence. Nations dependent on China for critical supplies, whether for energy, technology, or infrastructure, are subtly bound to Beijing's strategic interests. A delayed shipment, a renegotiated contract, or a sudden shift in export regulations can alter policy decisions in capitals thousands of miles away. Consider Europe. When a nation criticizes Beijing's policies, trade projects often stall or loans are reconsidered. Across Asia, countries reliant on Chinese supply chains find themselves forced to balance economic necessity with political autonomy. Even long-established allies of the United States hedge their bets, wary of being cut off from the world's largest manufacturing hub. China's economic power doesn't require bullets or tanks. It moves through shipping containers, pipelines, and digital networks. Every port financed, every railway built, every factory opened overseas increases dependency. By controlling the flow of goods, materials, and capital, China shapes global markets and exerts pressure without firing a shot. The result is a quiet but profound shift in global power. Countries increasingly find that their prosperity, and sometimes even their sovereignty, is linked to Beijing's choices. Economic influence has become a modern instrument of control, and the world is learning that in the 21st century, The balance of power is measured not just by armies, but by trade, technology, and strategic leverage. Section 3. The Digital Silk Road. China's new frontier isn't built of concrete, steel, or ships. It's built of data. The Digital Silk Road, a lesser-known branch of the Belt and Road Initiative, is transforming global influence into something far more subtle and enduring. Control over information, communication, and digital infrastructure. Across Asia, Africa, and even Europe, Chinese companies like Huawei, ZTE, and Hikvision are constructing the backbone of modern connectivity. 5G networks, fiber optic cables, and satellite systems are installed not only to improve communication, but to embed Beijing's technological presence at the core of other nations' economies. This isn't just about faster internet. It's about influence. Control the data, and you control decisions from commerce and banking to government surveillance and security. Chinese satellites orbit over developing nations, providing mapping, monitoring, and connectivity, while quietly linking these countries' systems to China's global network. Even the financial system is part of the strategy. The e-yuan, China's digital currency, is being introduced as an alternative to the US dollar for cross-border trade. Slowly but surely, nations conducting business with China may adopt digital systems that integrate with Beijing's technology ecosystem, giving China unprecedented insight and leverage. And it doesn't stop at infrastructure. AI research, smart city projects, and cloud computing initiatives abroad are often tied to Chinese firms, creating a reliance that extends far beyond economics. The Digital Silk Road is a new kind of empire, one that expands silently, strategically, and without conventional warfare. The battlefield has shifted from oceans and borders to algorithms, networks, and codes. Nations that embrace Chinese technology gain development benefits, but they also tie their digital sovereignty to Beijing's influence. In the 21st century, power isn't measured solely by military might. It's measured by who controls the flow of information, the connectivity of nations, and the very architecture of the digital world. Section 4. The West reacts. China's quiet expansion is no longer a distant story. It's a global reality that has Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo on high alert. Governments are scrambling to respond, yet each move seems to come just a step behind Beijing's relentless advance. Sanctions, trade restrictions, and technology bans are the first line of defense. The United States has imposed export controls on critical semiconductor equipment, while Europe debates similar measures to limit the flow of advanced technology to Chinese firms. But for every restriction, China builds in alternative financing projects, establishing new trade routes, and deepening relationships with countries that are eager for development and investment. Consider the BRICS alliance, now including nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Egypt. Together, they are developing financial systems that bypass the US dollar, creating parallel economic networks that reduce dependency on Western institutions. Oil and commodities, once priced exclusively in dollars, are increasingly being traded in yuan, challenging the global economic dominance of the West. Even traditional US allies are hedging their bets. Southeast Asian nations, the Middle East, and parts of Africa are balancing partnerships between Washington and Beijing. They are not abandoning the West, but they recognize that China's influence is expanding steadily and, in many cases, inevitably. The West reacts with caution and urgency, but the challenge is systemic. Supply chains are deeply interwoven with Chinese production. Digital infrastructure relies on Chinese technology, and strategic investments make disentanglement costly. Attempts to push back too aggressively risk alienating partners or destabilizing global markets. In short, Beijing's rise is testing the West's ability to respond strategically. It is a silent takeover, operating through economic leverage, technological infrastructure, and global partnerships. And the world is beginning to see the consequences. Influence is shifting eastward, and the rules of international engagement are quietly being rewritten. Section 5. The World Transformed. The 21st century isn't just witnessing China's rise, it's experiencing a fundamental transformation of global power. Across continents, trade routes, alliances, and influence are being reshaped, not by war, but by strategy, connectivity, and economic leverage. Power no longer resides solely in those with the largest armies. Today, influence flows through technology, infrastructure, and capital. Nations that control trade networks, digital systems, and critical resources define the rules of the global game. And in this arena, Beijing is asserting itself as a central architect. From Africa to Southeast Asia, Chinese-built ports, railways, and digital networks have become lifelines for economic development. Countries that once relied primarily on Western support are now deeply integrated into China's sphere, creating new dependencies that extend far beyond traditional diplomacy. Even financial power is shifting. The yuan and alternative banking networks reduce the world's reliance on the US dollar, allowing China to shape global trade and investment flows. Strategic commodities, from rare earth metals to energy resources, are increasingly controlled or influenced through Chinese channels, giving Beijing leverage over global markets. This transformation is not violent, but it is profound. Nations and regions are quietly recalibrating. Southeast Asia balances between US security guarantees and Chinese economic incentives. Europe seeks alternatives to Chinese supply chains while avoiding confrontation. Africa and Latin America increasingly see China as a partner in development and infrastructure. The world is quietly being reordered. Alliances will adapt, trade flows will shift, and the traditional definition of a superpower may no longer point exclusively to the West. China's rise illustrates that influence can be exercised silently, strategically, and pervasively reshaping the global landscape without firing a single shot. And yet, one question remains. Can this new world order remain peaceful, or will the silent expansion eventually provoke confrontation? The answer will define the future of geopolitics for decades to come. Section 6. The future of conflict and cooperation. China's rise has reshaped the rules of global influence, but the world is far from static. While economic and digital dominance grows, so too do risks of tension and conflict. Across the Indo-Pacific, nations are recalibrating their strategies. Southeast Asian countries face a delicate balancing act: embrace Chinese investment and risk dependence, or lean on US security guarantees and risk economic marginalization. Japan, Australia, and India are strengthening regional partnerships, forming new frameworks like the Quad to hedge against instability. Meanwhile, Europe and Africa are seeking alternative trade and technology partners to reduce reliance on China, yet many remain tied to its infrastructure and supply chains. The result is a complex web of cooperation, competition, and calculated risk. Potential flashpoints exist everywhere: contested islands in the South China Sea, sensitive trade choke points, and even cyberspace, where data and AI become strategic weapons. A single miscalculation, a territorial skirmish, trade embargo, or cyber attack could escalate tensions quickly, testing the world's ability to manage conflict peacefully. Yet there is also opportunity. Multilateral frameworks, smart diplomacy, and global institutions could help nations navigate this new landscape. By fostering dialogue, investing in resilience, and balancing influence, the international community can reduce the risk of direct confrontation. The future is neither predetermined nor simple. One thing is clear: the choices nations make today in trade, technology, and security will shape the global order for decades. China's rise is just one part of a dynamic equation. How the rest of the world responds will determine whether the 21st century is defined by cooperation, competition, or conflict. If China's silent takeover continues unchecked, the world won't collapse, it will simply reorder itself. Trade routes will shift, alliances will adapt, influence will flow eastward. The 21st century belongs not to the nation with the largest army, but to the one that controls the flow of goods, technology, and information. And right now, that power is quietly shifting. The question isn't whether China is rising, it's whether the world is ready for a new balance of power. If you found this analysis insightful, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to GeoPower Report for more in-depth geopolitical breakdowns. Because in today's world, where silence builds empires, understanding the next move is the only way to stay ahead.